Welcome to the last meeting of the calendar year of the Authority. It's good to have you all here. I think we got a full house today. Well, with the exception of the absence of one of the designated members. The agenda is deceptively short. There are several things that we're going to do today that may take a bit more time, but it's a good agenda. It's terrific. We'll start with the approval of well, I'll ask for the approval of the minutes. Are there any recommended revisions or changes? Hearing none, may I have a motion please to approve the minutes? Darrell, thank you. Jerry, thanks for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. As there are none opposed, the motion passes unanimously. We'll go to the second agenda item, which is the report of the Finance Committee. Mr. Finance Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, we met yesterday afternoon in New York City with a video in Albany after adopting the meeting minutes from the October Finance meeting, because we didn't meet in November. We then proceeded to address one resolution, that was the Orange Regional Medical Center. After some discussion and after noting that the Department of Health recommended approval of that resolution, the Finance Committee actually recommends that that resolution be adopted today. We deferred on the TELP offering, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Finished faster than I could chew. Thank you. Are there any questions for Bill? Hearing none, we'll move to the adoption of financing documents and resolutions. Mr. President.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome. Behind tab 3 is the Bank Street College of Education with co-bond counsel Christopher J. Retzel, Esquire, Squire Patton Boggs, and Douglas M. Seaton, Esquire, of E. Seaton and Associates, and Steve Kozer, presenter. Thank you.
Morning.
Morning.
Just have a brief update before Chris and Douglas describe the bond documents. The board is being asked to adopt the necessary documents for up to $25 million for Bank Street College of Education to refinance its Series 2002 bonds, which were issued through the New York City IDA, to make leasehold improvements for lease administrative space, and to renovate the college's main building on 112th Street in Manhattan. Since the board authorized the resolution to proceed, Bank Street has switched to a new purchaser of the bonds. The new purchaser will be People's United Muni Finance Corp., which is a wholly owned subsidiary of People's United Bank. As described in the credit summary update, the bonds are expected to be drawdown bonds with an initial draw at closing and a second draw expected in the fall of 2017. The bonds will have a 30-year term, which includes 1 year of interest-only payments and 29 years of principal amortization. The bank's commitment provides the college with a few different financing alternatives. Option 1 provides for a fixed rate of interest for 10 years. Option 2 allows the college to have variable rate bonds with a swap to provide a synthetic fixed rate. And Option 3 allows the college to have variable rate bonds and enter into a forward starting swap. The college and or bank have options to terminate or renegotiate the transaction at approximately the 10-year and 20-year anniversaries of the issuance. And dependent upon final tax council review, a small portion of the project is expected to be financed taxably. The commitment from the bank and the documents, which will be described by Chris and Douglas, provide for the taxable component. So, despite a new purchaser being in place, the transaction is similar to what was presented to the board at resolution to proceed regarding debt service and the security provisions. However, there are the additional variable rate options with a swap that the college will need to decide if it wants to proceed with. The college is in the process of engaging an independent swap advisor to advise them on the swap-related options before making a determination.
Thank you. Chris, are you going to?
Good morning. Before you for consideration is the adoption of the Authority's Bank Street College of Education revenue bonds and 2 series resolutions authorizing individually and in the aggregate $25 million of the Authority's Bank Street College of Education revenue bonds. Proceeds of the bonds may be used for renovations to one of the college's main buildings and leasehold improvements to certain administrative office space, to refund all or a portion of the IDA bonds that Steve just talked about, and to pay costs of issuance. In order to provide flexibility for the college, you are being asked to authorize the issuance of up to 2 series of tax-exempt and taxable bonds or a combination thereof. It is currently anticipated that the bonds will be issued pursuant to a private placement, with 1 series issued as tax-exempt and 1 series as taxable. In addition, the college is currently evaluating the preferred rate mode for the bonds. If issued as fixed-rate bonds, it is expected that each series would bear interest at a fixed rate, subject to reset or refinancing at approximately 10 and 20 years. Alternatively, if issued as variable rate bonds, it is expected that each series would bear interest at an index-based floating rate. Should the college elect the variable rate option, the purchaser is expected to require the college to execute 1 or more floating to fixed interest rate swaps, either concurrent with issuance or on a forward basis, as Steve mentioned. The series resolutions, however, do not limit the discretion of the authority's officers to determine to issue the bonds in other configurations than are currently contemplated. Janney Montgomery Scott is serving as the placement agent, and People's United Muni Finance Bank is expected to be the private purchaser. It is anticipated that the bond purchase agreement among DASNY, the college, and the purchaser will provide that the purchaser will fund the purchase price of the bonds on a drawdown basis. The purchaser will advance the initial installment of the purchase price on the date of issuance in an amount necessary to finance certain project costs and to retire the refunded bonds. Subsequently, the purchaser will fund additional installments in amounts equal to the amounts to be dispersed to the college to pay costs of the project until completion, when the drawdown period will end. I think the current expectation is that there will just be 1 additional draw, but I don't think that the series resolutions don't limit us. Douglas is going to talk a little bit more about the documents.
The general resolution provides for the issuance from time to time of multiple series of bonds. Each series is separately secured from each other, except as otherwise provided in an applicable series resolution. The bonds are special obligations of the authority, payable solely out of the revenues, which consist of payments made by the college under the loan agreement. Payment of the bonds is secured by a pledge and assignment made by the general resolution of the revenues, the authority's security interest in any pledged revenues, and the monies and investments held in the funds and accounts established by the general resolution and the series resolutions. The series resolutions delegate to various officers of the authority the power to make the determinations described in our letter and to do all the things necessary or convenient in connection with the sale and issuance of the bonds. In accordance with the authority's guidelines, the series resolutions also contain restrictions on the ownership and transfer of the bonds to qualified institutional buyers. The authority and the college will execute a loan agreement in connection with the issuance of the bonds, which will require the college to make timely payment of the debt service on the bonds. The college's obligations to make payments under the loan agreement will be a general obligation, secured by a pledge of revenues acceptable to the purchaser that is currently expected to be tuition and fees equal to the maximum annual debt service, subject to any prior pledges. If acceptable to the purchaser, the loan agreement may permit the college to incur additional indebtedness secured by a parity lien on the pledged revenues. The purchaser is also expected to require a mortgage securing the loan agreement that is anticipated to encumber the college's main facility and consist of a project loan mortgage and a building loan mortgage. It is expected that the authority's rights under the loan agreement and the mortgage will be assigned to the trustee, who will exercise remedies at the direction of the purchaser. In the event that swaps are required, there is also expected to be an intercreditor agreement to govern the sharing of the pledged revenues and the mortgage. In addition, the transaction documents may also contain certain financial covenants required by the purchaser. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Are there questions for Douglas?
Perhaps I missed it, but I didn't see in your letter that you would use an independent swap advisor. Is that is the case?
Yes.
Just want to confirm that is the case. I don't know if it's necessary to be.
That's a question I was
I
asking.
think it's in the staff report. Credit summary update. It's in the credit summary update from Steve. Very, very end. I'm sorry, which one? It's See it right there?
Yes.
Yep, it's there.
I saw it there.
So you don't think it's necessary to be?
No, because it's not, the letter describes sort of the documents, and that's not something that's part of our documents that are before you for consideration.
Okay, that's fine. Other questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution? Is there a second? Paul, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. There are none opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to us. Thank you, both of you. Take care.
Behind tab 4 is the Orange Regional Medical Center Obligated Group transaction. Matt Bergen will present the credit summary and staff report.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
The staff report provided to the members presents a 21-year borrowing on behalf of the Orange Regional Medical Center Obligated Group. This financing is being presented as an exception to the DASNY guidelines, as the ratings are expected to be below the BBB- threshold and credit enhancement is not currently contemplated. The project that you're considering this morning is the advanced refunding of DASNY's Orange Regional Medical Center Obligated Group Revenue Bonds, Series 2008. The security features will include an obligation issued under the Master Trust Indenture, or the MTI, and this will be secured by a pledge of the medical center's gross receipts and a mortgage on the land and buildings of the hospital facility. In addition, the obligation will be secured by a pledge of the gross receipts of the Greater Hudson Valley Health System Medical Group and a guarantee of the medical group. Additional security features will include a 1-year debt service reserve fund. The expected ratings are BA1 and BB+. However, this is the third financing that DASNY has undertaken on behalf of the Orange Regional Medical Center Obligated Group with this rating. Just to give a brief history of the borrowings, DASNY issued approximately $261 million of bonds in April of 2008 for the construction of the new replacement hospital facility. This facility replaced the medical center's 2 existing hospitals, and the original project followed the Commission on Healthcare Facilities in the 21st Century recommended action. It was this bond issue that was the initial bond issue for the Orange Regional Medical Center Obligated Group that had the BA1 BB+ ratings, and it is these bonds that we're looking to refund. In addition, $66.1 million was issued in April of 2015 for a new medical office building and an oncology center. Regarding the medical center's finances, in the beginning, with the opening of the new facility in August of 2011, the medical center did experience operating losses in 2011, 2012, and 2013. However, in 2014 and 2015, the medical center experienced operating gains of $4.9 million and $6 million, respectively. Through September 30th of this year, the medical center experienced an operating gain of $12.8 million. And regarding utilization from 2013 to 2014, discharges increased by approximately 2,700. Although discharges remained flat in 2015, through September 30th of this year, discharges have increased by over 500 as compared to the first 9 months of the prior year. Regarding their outpatient statistics, they're also trending well, as the 2015 utilization was above 2014, and the first 9 months of 2016 are higher as compared to the first 9 months of the prior year. And finally, regarding the refunding, annual gross savings of approximately $2 million are anticipated, resulting in a net present value benefit of approximately $28.5 million. Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Matt. For the record, there appears in your binder the memorandum from the Department of Health recommending the approval of the resolution to proceed. Are there any questions on that? Yes, Tim.
Matt, just the 2015 bonds we did as an exception also. Was it for the same reason those bonds weren't rated? Is that?
They were actually rated, however, the rating was below the
Rating was
BBB- threshold.
And the original ones, 2008.
They were also BA1 BB+.
Also same.
So it's consistent.
Okay. Well,
Can I ask you what the timing of this transaction is, as far as when you expect it to get to market, and what kind of an assumed interest rate are you looking at? I'm just noticing the rise in interest rates expeditiously, and to get to any of the net present values, you're making an assumption as to the interest rate, which continues to escalate, probably as we speak. So, and it might be here, and I'm just not seeing it. But what do you anticipate? This could be for Portia, whoever is.
We hope to answer your first part of the question, we hope to get back to the board for the adoption of documents in January, and hopefully we would be in the market shortly thereafter. The way the analysis has been done, they're looking at interest rates of approximately 4% that would achieve these savings.
It may have been in here, and I apologize if I missed it. I understand why the current financing is an exception to the guidelines, but the 2008 financing was also an exception to, and the reason for that was?
They didn't have an investment grade rating.
So this is Portia, when we undertook the 2008 financing, as Matt had indicated, these bonds did not have an investment grade rating. There was a tremendous amount of state support in that transaction, including, if recollection serves, about $50 million in HEAL funds. It was a recommendation, the financing was a recommendation that was part of the Berger Commission recommendations. As far as the healthcare task force, which was set up at the time, this is the first new hospital to be established in New York in quite some time. The board at that time had several discussions about this, and because of, I think, the public policy significance associated with this institution and with the financing, we went forward and did it as an exception to the guidelines. We did not at that time have provisions for private placement. When we undertook the 2015 financing, we did have those guidelines in place. However, after discussions with the institution and the underwriter, given the fact that the original bonds were issued through a public offering, we came to an agreement to issue the bonds in 2015 as a limited public offering to 3 different types of sophisticated investors: qualified institutional buyers, accredited investors, and sophisticated municipal market professionals. We vetted that discussion with the board in 2015 quite thoroughly, and these bonds, again, would be issued similar to the 2015 bonds in that same manner: limited public offering to 3 types of institutional buyers. Again, the qualified institutional buyers, accredited investors, and sophisticated municipal market professionals. And we had discussed at the time sort of the way in which all of that information would be contained in the offering document.
And Debbie, you've pointed out that these bonds are going to be issued in large denominations.
Right. They'll be issued in $100,000 denominations,
Okay.
which the previous ones were as well.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think Portia reminds us, too, that this was part of a broad realignment of hospital services in the state that we were a partner with, along with the Berger Commission, and this had been identified as one of the major changes in that area. So we were supporting that, which would have influenced us along with the technical analysis.
Didn't this result in the closure of 2 hospitals?
That's correct.
And although early on in the process, it seems to be working so far.
Yeah. Seems to be.
Well, 2008 was a beginning of a recession.
It wasn't a very good year.
No.
Are there other questions?
And then this financing is a refunding of the 2008 bonds for savings.
Other questions for Matt or Portia? There being no questions, may I have a motion to transact? Gerald, thank you. John Johnson, thank you very much for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
None opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
The Montefiore proposed tax-exempt lease program lease has been tabled for this meeting. So we're going to move to the management reports, the first of which will be the report of the President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning again. Just like to say, last year this time, at the end of the year, we had focused on changing our guidelines. And with your support, DASNY successfully put into the market the changes in the financing guidelines, and it has had major positive benefits. And so here we are again at the end of the year, and we've had an incredible year. And this has been a very strong team effort. But most importantly, you don't have to take my word for it. What's important is what we are hearing from our clients and partners across the state and how we are focused on clients as well as trying to provide creative solutions. So by any measure, 2016 was and is indeed a banner year. Fiscal 2016 closed with a record year of financing. As you know, we issued $8.3 billion. The board on one day approved more than $3 billion in financing. And to date, we are poised to end the calendar year once again as one of the top municipal bond issuers in the nation. And as we look at the time period from April the 1st to December 1st, 2016, we've done 25 issues and over $6 billion in bond issues. Now, I won't go through all of this. I'll send each of you a note sort of enumerating all of the things that we have done throughout the year. But I think it is very important to reiterate, sort of in a closed way, all of the achievements that we have had with your support. And so I'll go through that very quickly. We had more than 1,300 active construction projects, which is more than any other year. These successes were built on a solid foundation. The first planks of that foundation were laid at the beginning of the year, as I indicated to you, when we recasted our financing guidelines and policies that provide our clients with greater speed, certainty, and flexibility. In February, we realigned all of DASNY to streamline the flow of information and decision-making. The realignment included merging our MWBE and procurement teams to improve our contracting process and ensure MWBE and efficiency is a focus on each and every contract from start to finish. We partnered with the Department of Health on the reimbursement process, eliminating and streamlining a process allowing clients to get better use of their dollars and identify economies of scale. It gives them faster access to funds so they can build capital projects. With your support, I think it was our last board meeting, we added Construction Manager Build to our toolbox of alternative project delivery methods. That box already includes Construction Manager at Risk and Design Build. Excuse me. We are working to broaden the use of Design Build and make it a more compelling solution for clients. And then internally, and you'll hear about this later on in the agenda, we instituted the first initiative for talent enhancement and retention of knowledge. We are putting a focus on human capital needs and the important role that they play throughout all of DASNY. Together with the board, we established reserve funds to improve DASNY both inside and out. The funds included $4 million to help us in our evolution of our human capital, another $3 million for the 21st technology upgrades that will enhance our interactions with clients and investors. Our finance and information IS teams also unveiled technology improvements to provide further efficiencies. Among the changes they are implementing is the automation of tasks associated with DASNY's biweekly check runs to pay vendors. And we've got a major technology-wide initiative across all of DASNY in which every department is partnering with our IS team. So we have a short-term approach, we have an intermediate and a longer-term plan that we will sketch out for you and show you in terms of a calendar. One of the largest private client deals in our 72-year history, we did NYU. That was more than $800 million. A $200 million portion of the financing will be used to construct the NYU Langone Medical Science Building. We also had the ability to see the conclusion through the ribbon cutting of our highest value project in the history of DASNY, the opening of CUNY's approximately $700 million Advanced Science Research Center. In April, we helped finance Columbia University's Manhattanville campus. This included $50 million in green bonds to support the construction of the university's Jerome L. Green Science Center. These projects, Columbia University, NYU, and CUNY, are all part of a rising research corridor that DASNY is helping to finance and build in the heart of New York City. It's going to have major economic and technical implications, not just in New York City, but across the state. As this work progressed, we stayed true to our mission to finance and build inclusive communities where opportunity is available to all, regardless of the color of their skin or gender or class. This was certainly true with the opening of the New York State Office of Mental Health's $350 million Bronx Behavioral Health Campus in January. We surpassed Governor Cuomo's 30% MWBE contracting goal on the project, and we had a 35% community participation in the Bronx. And we are reimagining this across many of our projects. To help continue and grow our success in supporting minority and women-owned firms, DASNY, for the first time in a number of years, sponsored an MWBE networking conference. The event drew hundreds of attendees who were informed that in order to they need to partner with MWBE firms. We also posted an RFP for general liability insurance providers that requires a partnership between an MWBE and a majority firm. Historically, MWBE firms have not been able to successfully bid on this procurement because they lack the experience of handling such a large volume of clients. We went to the marketplace. We didn't require anything, and we asked the marketplace, how will this look? And they've responded. They have the ability to do this. This new image of ourselves was perfectly clear in our annual report, which told the story of DASNY's work through four main themes: science, education, health, and resiliency. And as you might recall, the magazine-style articles of the annual report, which is a new approach, tell the stories of DASNY's achievements through the eyes of our clients. They connect the work DASNY does every day with the impact across the state and the way we are making New York a better place to live, work, and learn. So, with that, and there's a lot more, but I won't highlight that, we'll share it with you. We're entering 2017 as an innovative, creative, knowledgeable, and reliable economic partner for New York State. We take pride in our role as a leader and will continue to set the bar high for achievement in the coming year. And we thank you for your leadership, your support, and direction. So that is really the conclusion of our achievements this year. I wanted to highlight that before I went into our day-to-day activities in the last month.
Questions for Gerard?
That's it.
Go right ahead.
Okay. We presented a final schedule for the 2017 DASNY board and committee meetings. We proposed 11 meetings, 5 in Albany and 6 in New York City. As is our custom, most recently, a tentative special board meeting date of August 9th is noted on the schedule and will be held only if necessary. This schedule continues the practice of holding our board meeting dates closer to the beginning of the month to better align with PACB meetings. Today, we will continue a new practice that we began of sharing inside looks at DASNY operations with you. You will hear from the co-leaders of our newly formed Resource Acquisition Group, Michael Clay and Lou Sorelli. The unit, you may recall, brings together the MWBE focus of our Opportunity Program Group, led by Michael, with the partner building know-how of our procurement unit, led by Lou. Located inside the construction division and reporting to Paul Koopman, the Resource Acquisition Group helps ensure that MWBE participation is central to all of our DASNY contracts and operations. You will hear from them immediately following Steve Kuro's report. After that, you will also hear from Yvette Malave Diaz, our Director of Human Capital and Operations, and Nicholas Olette, our Talent Acquisition Specialist, about our efforts to grow the bench of DASNY's human capital. Now, before we get into those, we will highlight we had an excellent event in November for our newly impaneled legal and underwriting firms. We hosted on November the 17th at the CUNY Graduate Center in New York. Tremendous participation in terms of we had more than 200 participants, and we had members of the public finance portfolio monitoring team as well as legal. Portia Lee gave a presentation. Mike Cusack gave a presentation. And really, the whole point of that was to, once again, bring DASNY front and center with its partners and clients. I know that has been something that we had previously done, and we had done it very successfully, and we had not done it in a couple of years. So we have gone back to doing events and activities like that. We described how we expect our partners to come to us with ideas that will help add value, position our clients, and deliver more for New Yorkers. We reaffirm at all points in time that we focus on performance and outcomes. As it relates to finance, finance is developing the proposed 2017-2018 DASNY operating budget. Information is currently being gathered from all DASNY departments and compiled by the Budget Department in anticipation of sending a draft budget package to the board on December 31st, as required under the Public Authorities Accountability Act. The board will be asked to adopt the budget at the March meeting. At this point, I will ask Kim Nadeau, who will present to you with an update on the performance against the authorities' current 2016-2017 budget. Kim?
Thank you, George. Good morning. Being that we are 7 months into the current year, we thought it would be a good time to give you an update on how we're doing against the budget. As you may recall, we ended the last fiscal year in a position of losing $2.4 million. You approved a budget that was projecting to lose $200,000, or essentially a break-even year. And at this point, we have changed that projection where we believe we will lose approximately $1 million for the year. So I want to step back and put that change into a little bit of context for you. And certainly, while unfavorable, it is a significant improvement still over how we did in the last fiscal year. Our overall expenditure level is remaining consistent with our plan. And the change, the delta of about $800,000, represents about 1% of our overall operating budget. So, as I said, our expenses have largely stayed in line with the plan. So what's really driving the change in the projection is the revenue side. We have two primary sources of revenue, as you know. We have our public clients and our private. Public clients we support through construction, financing, bond administration. But those clients we bill based on the time that we spend supporting their programs. Private clients, financing, bond administration, have fixed fees. When we developed the budget, we assumed 88.6%, or rather large amount of our expenditures were going to be spent supporting our public clients, the balance on our private clients. The public has decreased in its totality, or percent, so overall expenses staying on plan, but now we're assuming that about 83% of the total expenditures are supporting the public clients. As a result of the fact that we bill based on how we're spending our dollars, where we're spending our time, that's having a direct and negative impact on the revenue stream. On the private side, where we're spending more time than we had assumed in the budget, we have our fixed fees, and so we're limited in terms of how much additional time we're spending on those deals from recovering those dollars. Does anyone have any questions on the expected time?
Questions for Kim?
One other area that I wanted to talk about in terms of the information that was provided to you was, you might have seen the new section that we added, reserve funds and capital outlays. We thought that in light of the fact that over the next several years, we do expect to be making some significant investments in infrastructure in various ways, that it would be helpful for you to see that called out separately from our day-to-day recurring operations. If you look at that section, you see that we ended last year with about $50 million in our reserve funds. And then if you look ahead at the end of the 4-year period where we're expecting to make these significant investments, that level will have decreased to approximately $40 million. That $10 million decrease, about half of it is coming from our reserve for replacements. And that's going largely to technology enhancements, some of which Gerard just referred to, as well as infrastructure improvements, physical infrastructure to our buildings. About $3 million we expect to be used to help our healthcare clients who are experiencing a variety of financial challenges. And then the remaining $2 million goes to supporting our ongoing operations. Are there questions on the new section or the anticipated use?
If we looked back at our reserves and the reserve, what would the picture look like? What level of reserves have been maintained over time?
Largely stable. I don't have history too much further than, say, for the past year, but overall the reserve level tends to stay stable.
It had been stable until in July when we brought in the additional reserves from the bond program, from the World Bond Program. We brought them out of the program because they weren't needed anymore, and onto the DASNY reserves and allocated them. So up until that point in time, they were stable, probably in the $40 million range, and then we brought those on, so now we're at the $50 million range. I mean, just really round numbers on those things. But
so returning to a 40 is returning to what had been the past norm?
It's been the norm over the past few years. We haven't been, the ancient past, we were adding to those reserves significantly.
Ancient is more than a few years.
Yeah, like my kind of ancient, yes. And then in the recent past, it's been fairly level, but a little bit of a bleed off of them just on a recurring basis. And now we've increased them, but dedicated them. I mean, when we talk about reserves, we're talking about obligated reserves, reserves that are established for particular purposes, not just general reserves. And we did that this past summer with in terms of closing down the Moral Op program and bringing those funds over to support these initiatives that both Gerard and I have talked about. So, we can certainly produce a past look into the future, but that's the major change over the past few years is the addition of the money from the Moral Obligation program.
Okay. Just trying to get a handle on whether we should be concerned about using reserves or not.
Are there other questions for Kim? Kim, did you have anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Al, is there anything we could do to try to at least reduce our expenses to try to bridge that gap on the short term?
To reduce
$1 million is $1 million.
Yeah,
I mean, I realize we sort of throw it out, but it's still a significant amount of money. And
sounds like we're trying to do that, but that's a good question for Kim. What are we doing to try to ensure that $1 million deficit is at the end of the year, a deficit that looks better than it looks now?
Overall, we really try to look at all the expenditure levels and only expend funds that need to be expended. Because most of our dollars do come from personnel,
Sure.
We're certainly being very mindful about positions that are added, making sure that they are, in the end, it may be in the short term that they're not adding to the bottom line, but that they have a future prospect of additional support on the construction side, potentially bringing in additional volume on the financing side. Also looking at opportunities to fund some of those dollars through some of the new reserves that we set up this summer. And not all of that is reflected yet in the plan, as those haven't been specifically identified.
So, let me add to that. So, the effort to help go through a transformation at DASNY and the use of our reserve funds is to better position ourselves to grow our business, because our cost structure is pretty much fixed. And what we try to do is manage that fairly aggressively. As we see people leaving, where do we deploy people better and more efficiently? And then most importantly, how can we continue to grow our footprint and our broader business, which is construction? We will highlight to you, we've had a collective discussion around our fees in our private client business. So the fees are what they are. They're significantly low for very strategic clients. So we're looking at ways to recapture some of that, but to continue to allow broad participation. So there are a number of things that we would do, but the catch-up of this is going to be incremental based on the cost structure that we have. So $1 million is a number. There's no question about it. It's 1%. I think last year it was $2 million, and the year before that it was something like that. What we're trying to do is stay in a position where we can grow these businesses by being more efficient and enhancing our infrastructure. So that has started. Also looking at how we better redeploy our human capital, which is a big initiative that we'll talk to you about a little
your
later.
big expense is your capital. I mean, your resources.
And to give that perspective, the current head count here is, I think it's under 500.
It's under 500.
Those of you who've been here a long time know that it's been over 600. So we've taken actions over the last years to align that cost. Our operating cost has been extremely stable over that period of time. It really hasn't increased, and our volume really hasn't changed. Both on the financing side, I mean, we had a dip in volume in 1 year, but on the financing side or on the construction side, the number of projects, some of the dollars out the door are lower, but the actual number of projects, contracts that are being administrated, has remained very stable, as well as our operating cost. And as Gerard said, we're looking to these reserves to make that investment in the organization to make sure that we stay current.
And I would assume a lot of the investment in technology is aimed at making it more efficient and reducing labor costs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we also, we have to do a stronger job of going out and telegraphing the changes that we've made. We've made a lot of changes here. As we go out and talk to our clients, they get it, they understand it. What we have to do now is really institutionalize how we market that. So Portia, Andy, and I have gone out and talked to all of our top clients, but we want to get below that. So we have an effort in which we have met, or we are in the process of meeting with all of the healthcare and higher education bankers to reaffirm all of the work and the changes that we've put in place, and to get an opportunity to do more business. That's at the end of the day, get an opportunity to do more business with them. Paul Koopman has been working closely with Steve and myself in terms of figuring out ways that we can leverage alternative delivery methods in terms of the SUNY portfolio. So there's a lot that we're trying to figure out. Can we be a transactor to some of the smaller private colleges that don't really have a significant infrastructure? So what are the ways that we can be helpful? So everything is open for discussion.
Any other questions?
How long is the lease in this building? What's left in this lease?
What do we got? 3 more years?
3 more?
Don't want to go to Brooklyn.
That's on the record,
expensive.
Sandra.
Brooklyn's very expensive these days, so Sandra,
You gotta be thinking of it.
you may want to come
What's
back
your,
to
what's your rate
Manhattan.
dinner?
Brooklyn is very expensive.
So you're very,
We had a
so
meeting, we've
last
already
month.
started.
We went through that.
Don't worry.
Hey,
Don't worry.
I looked at, you're
We're not going to.
As long as I
infrastructure
stay here.
cost,
Yeah, that's good.
and it's
I'm
not going
actually
to
thinking
go,
the
it's going to go
Bronx,
higher.
The home of my birth, because you're closer to Albany.
Good
But
luck.
whatever,
Well, I think
Have good subway. I mean, depending on where you are in the Bronx.
Great subways. Great
no.
public
So a
transportation.
lot
Doesn't
is
matter.
being done for the Bronx. The governor is doing a lot in terms of not just the subways, but also Metro North.
Metro North.
Right, Metro
Well,
North in terms of the stops.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, but I think as we think about this footprint, the value proposition of being here in this catchment area is we have access to 2 very incredible portals of transportation that comes from the west side and the east side, certainly from the suburbs and upstate. And that would be Amtrak and Metro North. So it'd be very hard for us to kind of walk away from this area, given the fact that it gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of having our people deployed, moving around. So
Just, I wasn't suggesting the move of
No, I'm
patients,
just
the
throwing it out.
amount of space and,
just throwing it out.
Absolutely.
It's a big component of your cost, your office space.
Yep. Yeah, that's fine.
Then may I have a motion, please, to go into executive session to discuss the financial and credit histories of Barrow. Thank you.
Second.
Sandra, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. And unopposed, the motion carries unanimously. I apologize to Mike and Lou because you've just come in. It will be brief, I promise.
Dan.
Turn off.
We've just left an executive session during which no decisions were made other than to return to the public session. I think we're at a point in the agenda. We were in the middle of
That's
the
right.
President's report, so you now have people you're going to call on to.
So, public finance and portfolio monitoring. As you may recall, in April, the Department of Health retained Northwell Health to prepare a report on how Brooklyn's hospitals could be reconfigured to provide improved and ongoing care to the borough's residents. In mid-November, Northwell released its report. The report recommended that Brookdale Hospital, Kingsbrook Jewish Medical Center, Interfaith Medical Center, and Wyckoff Heights Medical Center be turned into a unified health system. The report also recommended shifting certain services among the hospitals, bless you, and expanding others, including at Brookdale. It is being reviewed by the Department of Health. Larry Volk has some additional information on the report.
Good morning. The long-awaited Northwell feasibility study of central and northern Brooklyn was released on November 20th, and you have copies of the executive summary of that report, Brooklyn Study, Reshaping the Future of Healthcare, on the table before you. The transformation plan that was proposed by Northwell is summarized at the top of page 8 of the executive summary and entails a common governance and system-wide management for the 4 hospitals, that is Brookdale, Interfaith, Kingsbrook, and Wyckoff, regionalizing and restructuring clinical programs, and development of a large, geographically dispersed ambulatory care network. The proposal would have all 4 continuing to provide emergency services. Kingsbrook would focus on post-acute care, while the other 3 would remain community hospitals, and Interfaith's behavioral health services would be expanded. Inpatient services at Brookdale and Wyckoff would be strengthened. The report notes that the capital investment required significantly exceeds the $700 million of Kings County transformation grant funding the state has appropriated. The report also states that the transformation will take 5 to 7 years to achieve and will reduce the annual operating subsidy required from approximately $300 million in the current fiscal year to approximately $288 million in fiscal year 2021, which is approximately $117 million less than the $405 million collective deficit run rate otherwise projected that year. There are 37 separate recommendations in the report, which also discusses, to a lesser extent, University Hospital of Brooklyn Downstate Medical Center. Recognizing the $700 million appropriation for Kings County transformation, in announcing Northwell's engagement to carry out the study, DOH asked Northwell to identify specific capital projects with a goal of creating a high-quality and financially sustainable system of care. The report identifies the broad areas in which it proposes that the $700 million Kings County transformation funding would be deployed over 5 years, with roughly 1/3 each going to development of the ambulatory care network, clinical program development, and the combination of information technology and facilities infrastructure. The full 150-page report is available on Northwell's website. I would take any questions that you might have on it, and if any of you don't want to try to find it on Northwell's website and would like a copy, you let me know. I can send it to you.
Shall we tell you now, Larry?
Sure.
I'd love to have a copy.
Okay.
Question. 2 of the hospitals are being encouraged to increase their inpatient facilities, Brookdale and
Wyckoff and Brookdale are projected to have increased inpatient capacity.
In a time in our history present, when inpatient services are being discouraged.
Both of them would have a reduced inpatient beds from what they have now, but they're staffing it at a lower rate than what they're licensed for now.
Okay. Thank you.
And it really is a combination. Yes, Charlie.
Would you, Charlie?
If I may. The strategy, as we are interpreting it, because the report is still technically under review by the department, is a rationalization of services across those facilities. So each hospital will no longer necessarily be competing against each other, trying to provide the broad spectrum of services. So there'll be a rationalized, a contemplated remix of services in each facility. And of course, at Kingsbrook Jewish Medical Center, the inpatient capacity would be eliminated under the proposal. And I should also add that at tomorrow's Public Health and Health Planning Council meeting, we will be introducing to that council a proposal from 3 of the facilities. Wyckoff is not part of the application to form a common cooperator among the other 3 facilities to help in planning and specifically the submission of an application for a co-operator that could be eligible or would be eligible to apply for that $700 million when the RFA comes out. So Wyckoff has chosen, at least thus far, to on its own pursue an affiliation strategy with Northwell directly, and is not part of what has been advanced as the One Brooklyn Health entity. That's the name, One Brooklyn Health System, as a co-operator of Kingsbrook Jewish Medical Center, Interfaith, and Brookdale.
Just raises interesting questions for me. We already, you've got the Northwell study, and you've got with 5 hospitals that were initially included, but already you have Wyckoff separating out that group to join with Northwell, and you just wonder, and these are questions I ask out of complete ignorance, just wonder if you've got a One Brooklyn clinic and 2 sets of Brooklyn hospitals, how does that work?
Well, already there's been criticism over the name of the entity, as I think you're getting at as well. And while the department has been reviewing the services and potential rationalization of services across all of Brooklyn to include the former HHC, the University Hospital Brooklyn, and the other independent hospitals in Brooklyn. Each facility has its own independent governance structure, and as we try to work out a solution that may be mutually acceptable, it's difficult to get everyone to buy into a single strategy.
You beat me to my second question. If each institution still has its own separate governing body, then it begs the question: how do you mesh those together to end up with what ultimately would have to be, I would surmise, a governing body that has the responsibility for the One Brooklyn Hospital System, now 2 Brooklyn Hospital Systems.
It's still a work in progress.
Terrific.
Painfully.
Yeah. Painful.
You just remind me, who is Northwell? What is it?
Long Island Jewish Healthcare.
Oh, that's the new name.
That's correct.
North Shore.
As of January of this year, it's Northwell Health.
Thanks.
Other questions for Larry? Hearing none, Mr. President.
Thank you. Portia Lee will now provide you with a market update.
Thank you, Gerard. Behind tab 8 are the standard public finance reports. Just briefly in terms of our activity as far as pricings are concerned, since my last written report, we did price New School, and I think I had mentioned that at the last board meeting. So we priced New School and IAC before the election. I would just note for the record that there are 2 typos in my report for the BPA dates, which we will fix. Albany Public Library priced after the election, as did Vaughan College. The board had previously asked for an update as far as that private placement to qualified institutional buyers in terms of how that was accessing the market. So as I indicated, that transaction went to market to that pre-identified limited list of quibs that we had discussed previously. This was about a week after the election. The market was quite volatile. The bonds were ultimately priced with 2 qualified institutional buyers. As to a market update as a whole, as Beryl had mentioned earlier, rates have increased significantly, both Treasury rates and municipal rates on the Treasury side since the day before Election Day to the beginning of this week. 10-year Treasuries have increased 56 basis points. The 30-year Treasury has increased 45 basis points. In a similar time frame for MMD, the 10-year has increased 81 basis points, and the 30-year, 79 basis points. Having said that, in the last couple of days, and early reads of MMD today, we are seeing some decrease in those rates. The market at this point is pricing in a 100% chance of a rate hike this month. We have seen municipal bond outflows. The supply this week is expected to be over $10 billion. And it appears that market participants expect to see higher yields and volatility, largely due to the uncertainty, including issues like, discussions about possible future tax cuts and the fiscal stimulus. So more to come in the future. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Portia. Do you know when the Federal Reserve is scheduled to meet?
Next week.
It's next week.
Is it next week?
It's next week, I think. Yes, Daryl.
Thank you. Thank you both. Are there questions for Portia? Hearing none. Gerard.
Construction. DASNY had a strong presence at the New York Library Association conference. The annual conference is an opportunity for us to educate library representatives on the wide array of services we provide them with if they have the proper statutory authority. Almost a dozen DASNY staff members from the Construction Division, Public Finance, and Grants attended the event. The construction and financing services we provide to libraries across New York State is helping transform libraries into community hubs that can provide New Yorkers with job opportunities, career training classes, and meeting places. This makes our communities more attractive to companies and workers advancing economic growth. Steve Kuro will now provide you with an update on the Construction Division's work, followed by the presentations by Michael Clay and Lou Sorelli. Thank you.
Thank you. Behind tab 9, the standard Construction Division report. Start with the Construction Projects report. On the cover is a photo of the recently completed DEC Alder Lake Dam Spillway Modification Project. I had to look up where the Alder Dam was. It's actually 30 miles west of Kingston. So coming down here in the Mohawk Valley. The budget for the project was $900K. Replacement of retaining walls and the spillway box modifications were included in the scope. Design started June of 13, completed May of 15. The designer was Dewberry Engineers. Construction started April of this year and completed in October of this year. And the general contractor was Evergreen Mountain Contracting. A couple of unique features and challenges regarding the project. Cofferdam had to be built to isolate the spillway, the work area. The stone patterning you can see from the photo, quite challenging. There had to be a constant water flow from the lake to a trout pond downstream that was maintained. And completing the project within DEC's work permit timeframes was also challenging. This is a small project, but it's part of a much larger New York Works program. It was 12-13. New York Works was added to the budget, which spawned 25 projects for DASNY with a total value for DEC of about $55 million. So this is one of those projects that we have since completed. On page 3 of the same report, we've added 2 projects to our portfolio this past month. Brooklyn College, Whitman Hall, a $7.3 million project, and the New York City Tech NAM Hall vestibule replacement project at $6.1 million. On page 8, construction expenditures. Prior year to date through October were $352 million. The current year to date through October is $353 million, so just a $1 million difference, relatively flat year over year. A couple of projects we want to update you on. I'll start with the Court Officers Training Academy. I've spoken about this project at past board meetings. The work continues for all trades involved. The general contractor has reached a high productivity mark.
just from a dollars spent standpoint for the month of November, which is good news. Our GC continues to project a temporary approval for occupancy date of April 2017. The main focus of the trades really include the mechanical and electrical trades. However, all trades are fully engaged. Buildings 1 and 2 now have temporary protection on the window openings, and temporary heat has been included into Building 1 to allow for finish work to continue during the winter months. New windows are due for both buildings in mid-January, at which time they will be installed. We continue to closely follow the projects as delivery is now 12 months late, and our customer will be without consolidated space for the court officers beginning in January of 17. Bernard Feinson, Buildings 7 and 8. We had a mid-November TAO inspection. It was conducted by DASNY's Code Compliance Unit. There's a few open issues that remain, namely the door frames and doors and labeling of those. Elevator testing needs to be completed. There's a fire suppression system in the kitchen that needs to be completed. And some additional door exit hardware needed to be replaced. That's on order now. So overall, we're very close. We continue to work with the contracting team. We're also looking at bringing in job contractors to complete any work for our contracting team that is not actively progressing their scopes. Needless to say, OPWDD has waited a long time for this project, and at this point in time, they're telling us that they have a need for both buildings as soon as possible for one of their programs. So we're getting closer, but not quite there yet. On the NYCHA side, security work continues on all 4 phases of the security program work for NYCHA. The projects are advancing. Some have been completed and are being turned over to NYCHA for ongoing maintenance. On the appliance purchase front, actually today, we're delivering and installing our first round of appliances under this program. These are stoves and refrigerators, $11.3 million in total. So that is advancing, and there'll likely be a steady stream of appliances being installed on a go-forward basis until we run through that $11.3 million. So, on the non-security work, NYCHA continues to vet the project list to ensure coordination on project sites where both DASNY and NYCHA will be engaged in work at the same time. Just quickly on SUNY Brockport, the design-build project, we have interviews for our design-build teams. They're scheduled for this month, with final selection following immediately thereafter. The procurement remains on schedule with respect to the overall project schedule. And lastly, on the Javits Center, by the end of this week, we project we'll issue a building permit to begin construction on the building foundations package for a new transformer building related to the overall expansion of the Javits Center itself. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
What's our role with the Moynihan Station?
We are permitting that project under the New York State Building Code, so we're going to be the permitting entity for that project.
And that's just that one phase that's funded, or that's...
Actually, it's the train hall of really the overall project go forward. It's a developer-based project, but we've been asked to permit it.
That full project is not funded, is it?
I don't know. Okay. I mean, we actually have been engaged in the project at this point, as far as we're reviewing documents from the architecture, the design team, working toward permit, but I'm not sure what the funding status is on the project.
The project is not fully funded yet, I believe.
That was my understanding,
right.
Too.
So I sit on the board of the Moynihan Development Corporation, so we selected Vornado, Related, and Skanska. All right, and so part of the arrangement is that they would facilitate the financing north of $3 billion, right, to do this project.
At least. Okay.
Are there other questions for Steve? Hearing none, Steve, will you introduce the presenters?
Sure.
Or do you want to do that?
Yeah, so I would like to introduce a couple members of our team, the Resource Acquisition Group leaders, Luke Sorelli, who's our Director of Procurement, and Mike Clay, who's our Senior Director for Opportunity Programs, still bringing up to speed on our Resource Acquisition Group.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning. Thank you for having us. We'll just wait for the slides to come up here. Going into executive session.
Flash paper.
Give me a hard time with.
All right, so we thought we'd start out. First, thank you again for having us here. Michael thought we'd start out by talking about how we got to resource acquisition from where we were. So this is a scaled-down version of our org chart of what it used to be like about a year ago. And you can see Michael's group opportunity programs was under executive initiatives, and procurement was under the construction division. And communication kind of worked like this, and it worked okay. I mean, it really did. It worked okay. But if there were policy procedure changes, Michael would talk to his managing director, I would talk to my managing director. So there was an idea about how to do this a little bit better. And so the idea was to put both of those groups together in one group called Resource Acquisition. And the communication goes like this now. So Michael and I, we talk every day. And so as we speak to you here this morning, we'd like to just maybe understand a couple of things. First of all, I don't set goals and Michael doesn't do procurements. We don't do each other's jobs. We do our jobs together. Our teams interact every day, and there's a synergy that exists that didn't really exist before because we work as teams. So I'd like to dig in a little bit deeper now into the resource acquisition unit. So there are 6 groups underneath there, and I'm going to talk about the procurement side, and Michael's going to talk about the OPG side. Keep in mind one thing, procurement serves probably one of the most important roles in DASNY because no procurement or no contract happens without going through the procurement group. So when Gerard rolled out this new alignment and he spoke to both Lou and myself and to Steve and others, he felt that MWBE and procurement, since that was the central engine for DASNY, what a better place for us to interact because now when there are procurements moving forward, MWB is part of the conversation instead of part of the process. So if we need to reconfigure, if we need to have discussions, that's what Lou and I are doing on a daily basis on all procurements, not just on some. And previously it was the procurement and then there was MWBE. Now that's changed with both units interacting together. So we're a team. We're a team. So in Resource Acquisition Procurement Group, we have 4 groups, construction contracts headed by Jack Kemp, Kara Mallard heads our professional service group, Liz Condon heads purchasing, and Janine Teft heads our interior design. And I'll just briefly go through these groups for you. So first though, for any public procurement, we need really 2 pieces. We need the procurement piece, an advertisement and a selection, and then we need a contracting vehicle. It could be a professional service contract, could be a purchase order. Those functions are done by resource acquisitions. We're governed by policies approved by you, the procurement policy and the procurement contract guidelines, which are approved by the board. So for construction contracts, first they're the keeper of all the construction documents. They manage those documents and make sure they're up to date. We're starting an initiative very soon to actually update those again, involving both construction and legal. They provide bid and award services. They also do the review of the contractors once we have a low bidder to make sure that they're the appropriate contractor. And of course we work with Michael to look at opportunities. So I've got procurement opportunities, outreach, and goals. What I mean by opportunities is, say we have a small project that's $100,000. Well, that would be ideal for a discretionary purchase, which we can limit it then to M's, W's, and smalls. And we'll work with Michael to see if there's actually enough contractors in the area to have participation. It just helps with the rolling out of the opportunities because as you're aware of, DASNY has a responsibility based on Executive Law Article 15A, which I'll go into, to maximize opportunities based on contract value and contract types. So this increased synergy and also conversation that both groups are having allows us to maximize the opportunities for MWs and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses.
So these are the various contracting methodologies we have available in construction. And by the way, thank you very much for CM Build. We now have that in our quiver. And I put this up here just to show you that we have a variety of different ways to deliver construction to our customers. So for construction contracts, certainly we have to advertise. We have to then have a bid opening, which we do in Albany at 2 p.m. on days when there are bids. Then that group will actually review those bids looking for a responsive and responsible contractor. So responsive means they fill out the paperwork right. Responsible means they can actually build the project. So just a few metrics. So for the last 12 months of construction awards, about $500 million. And for the last 10 years of construction awards, about just under, or excuse me, $500 million and about just a little shy of $4 billion. On the professional services side of the house, again, they're the keeper of all the contracts and the RFP documents. They manage the request for proposal process. Gerard mentioned earlier the general liability RFP we have out right now. This group manages that process. They do all the negotiations of rates and multipliers of fee negotiations on contracts. And again, we work with Michael. We're looking for opportunities to get procurements out that might be selected for MSWs or in SDVOBs. As a matter of fact, in a few days we will release a SDVOB set-aside for architectural engineering and surveying services.
OPG participates on all the selection committees for professional services opportunities. So we're represented as part of the internal group that selects the appropriate architect, engineer, or professional services type firm.
So for professional services, we have a number of different types of contracts. We can have a single project contract where we might have a large capital project, $50, $100 million. We'll put an RFP out on the street. We will select a design professional team, and we will negotiate a fee and award a contract. Well, we also have term contracts, which are zero-sum contracts. That's for future work. So we don't know what the work is, but we have historical data that helps us put these established quantities of how many we need. We put those contracts into place, and then we award work with what we call work authorizations. And then we have an empanelment process, which is where we actually go out, we do the procurement. I said we need two pieces. We do a procurement and then a contract. So here we do the procurement. We notify firms that they've been selected, but we don't negotiate a contract necessarily until the work is actually needed. So for the previous 12 months on those single contracts that we would award for single projects, we've awarded $10 million in fees. And in the past 10 years, it's actually $1 billion. Now that number does contain some CM at risk dollars, otherwise that might seem a little bit high for architectural and engineering services. And for term work authorizations, you can see a large volume here. We do 1,100 work authorizations in the past 12 months, $71 million in fees. And in the last 10 years, almost 10,000 work authorizations and just shy of $750 million worth of fees awarded to design professionals. Purchasing. So our purchasing group, they procure goods and services for DASNY and for its customers. And they buy a variety of what we call FF&E. They buy everything from the pencils and paper that we have on the desks here today, to beds in a dormitory, to an fMRI machine for ASRC. They have a lot of buying power. We spend a lot of money in the industry, and so we have a lot of buying power. We get very good quotes when we go out for quotes. Again, for our purchasing department, they have, again, a variety of different ways to select vendors, which just helps our clients depending on what their needs are for a good or a service. And for the previous 12 months in purchasing, about $34 million in purchase orders issued, and in the past 10 years, about $500 million in purchase orders. We also have a small interior design group, 3 staff members in that group, and they are actually doing design. They are actually going out, meeting with customers, establishing interior design programs. They are providing concepts for them, and if those customers like those concepts, they will develop full drawings, specifications, and if those customers would like us to do the purchasing for that, we will bid that through our purchasing department, or they can bid that themselves, and we will provide those drawings and specifications to them, and then we will go out into the field when it's all installed and do a punch list for it.
It's important to note that because of this interaction, we are able to ensure that on the design phase, the specification phase, that MWBE vendors, manufacturers, reps, and others are included in the specifications, which facilitates through the procurement the actual utilization of these firms. And it's important in terms of that collaboration, because without that, then you may have specifications being put forward which may be shallow in terms of the availability of M&WBs to participate, because what's in the specs is what has to be produced for our clients and for the procurement.
So this is just a list of their active projects, and I call your attention to the right-hand column, Monroe Community College. That's a new downtown campus from Monroe Community College. It's about a $75 million construction project. And we are doing the FF&E purchasing, and we did the interior design also for that. And it's about a $10 million FF&E package for that project. And I'd like to close the procurement side with just a couple of photos. So that's a picture of the Justice Center we finished over in Delmar in our old offices at 161 Delaware Avenue. And basically everything from the windows down, the interior designers designed, so all the office systems that you see, they selected those chairs and the carpeting. We bought everything that's in that room through our purchasing, with the exception of maybe some of the construction work, which we would have done through a construction contract. So this is a before and after shot of a lecture hall down at Dutchess Community College. So this is the 1970s wood tablet armchairs that we're all probably familiar with. And they asked us to give that a new look, so we gave them some more modern seating with some comfortable seats. I sat in these, they're really uncomfortable. And pop-ups for 120 volt and USB charging located on all the desks. You can also see on the ceiling 256-inch LCD screens which they project their lectures on, and actually in the front, which you can't see, 2 80-inch LCD screens. And just one more real quick. This is Jefferson Community College up in Watertown. So this was their lecture hall. They asked us basically to do the same kind of makeover we did for Dutchess. So we took out the older wooden seating and put in some new modern seating with some charging stations. Here we gave them some new finishes, a little brighter color, some new ceilings, and actually new LED lighting. And what you can't see on the walls are some fancy fabric artwork.
We had a board meeting there, didn't we?
Say that again?
We had a board meeting in Watertown Community College, didn't we, John?
Yeah, we did, but it wasn't in that room.
Wasn't
there. It was a smaller room. Smaller room.
Well, you should try this one out if you get it.
But they use that, the public uses that room a lot.
Yes, yes. And with that, I'm going to turn the remote over to Michael so he can advance
So,
this slide.
again, as the resource acquisition, the procurement aspect, and now it's referring to OPG, which deals with the MWBE aspect. The org chart, as Lou showed earlier, has me as the senior director. There is an assistant director in Albany and an assistant director here in the New York City office. So what gives us the ability to mandate MWBE participation? There's two laws. Executive Law Article 15A, I've referenced before, mandates MWBE participation on procurements. There are specific thresholds for construction, professional services, and commodities and services, contracts and professional services, non-construction related contracting. And then recently, over the past couple of years, the legislature and the governor put forward Executive Law Article 17B, which mandates the participation of service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, both of which in all of our contracting, MWBE goals and service-disabled veteran-owned business goals are in every contract where it is applicable. Okay, so what are our responsibilities? Well, internally, we assign MWBE and SDVOB goals. So as Lou talked about, and that's why this alignment is critical, because it used to just be handed off to us, and we would be in a vacuum to assign the goals. Now there's collaborative conversation. We interact with the design manager. We interact with the project manager to learn about the specifics of the project and not just assign goals in a vacuum. We also outreach to MWBEs, SDVOBs, and small businesses because it's critical that individuals are aware of the procurement opportunities that DASNY has. So we go through quite a bit, which I'll explain in the next slide, in terms of how we do that. That is a major component of both the prime and subcontracting opportunities for MWs and SDVs. We work with the construction division and other divisions to monitor these contract goals, because it's one thing to set a goal, it's another thing to monitor it. DASNY has a very rich, which I think a good portion of the board here, except for the newer members, are familiar with, a rich legacy of MWBE compliance. We have been a leader in this area for a number of years, and one of the things that helps us is our ability to manage and monitor the contracts throughout all of the divisions. No contract gets awarded without MWBE goals, and no contract gets closed out without an MWBE sign-off from OPG. So that's quite a bit when you look at probably plus or minus, not including 2 contracts that's awarded, some 900 plus active contracts from design through construction. We also do on some of the projects, especially here downstate, we have a lot of high visibility projects, as we call them. These are projects where city council members, senators, assembly people, as well as the mayor's office or borough president's office are very interested in these projects because, again, the work that we do here at DASNY is central to urban areas throughout the city of New York. We also, through the procurement area, have vendor MWBE compliance. So externally, what are we doing? I broke it up that way because, again, we get assistance from Lou, we get assistance from the construction division to ensure that we are monitoring all of our contracts. So what do we do externally? We facilitate MWBE compliance. We provide educational assistance to MWBEs during the compliance process. There's MWBE reporting on DASNY projects. Gerard wants to know what's going on, or Michael, we're able to provide that information. We also do quite a bit of referral. A prime contractor, Turner, says, I'm looking for MWBEs who can assist me on project ABC. We're able to make a referral of a number of MWBEs who can perform those services that are New York State certified. And we do project-specific outreach events where we will have a particular project which is only information about prime and sub and supply opportunities on it. So outreach, one of the things I just mentioned was the DASNY registry. What do we do in terms of with procurement is that we will work with them. The procurement opportunities come through us, and as Lou and I sit there to administer this new resource acquisition group, we figure out where are the procurement opportunities, who should we outreach to make them aware of those opportunities as I mentioned. We use what's called the OPG registry. First of all, everybody in New York State that's an MWBE or SDVOB has to be state certified. DASNY does not involve itself with that. But one of the things we started some 10, 15 years ago is a registry where we will send out a direct notice to anyone registered to us, letting them know that there's a contract procurement opportunity in their area of specialty. And we just send them a notice saying, hey, this is something that's coming out, and you're more than welcome to participate. We have plan holders list, which we started a few years ago, which allows firms to find out who the bidders are. So if you're a subcontractor and you can only do the painting and we're redoing this room, then you can't bid the whole project, but you want to know who are the bidders so you can send them a painting bid. We provide the names and addresses of those individuals on our website, so it makes it easier for the small sub to participate. And that same firm can add themselves as an interested sub and supplier. So as Gerard always talks to me, and we talk quite a bit, you know, the numbers are the numbers, okay? But the numbers isn't what we live and move for. Yeah, I'm accountable for the numbers. Yes, DASNY is. But it's really about the services that we provide and the experience that a firm has working with DASNY as a prime or a sub. So Q1, Empire State Development Corporation requires all state agencies and authorities to report on a quarterly basis, fiscal year, on their MWB utilization to date. Q1, we did almost 27%, where there was $17 million in payments to M's and over $11 million to W's. quarter 2, which ended on October 15th, and we're in the middle, moving toward quarter 3, we did 29.99%. I'm gently reminded that's not 30. That's 29.999. So I will not say 30. But in the event, you can see that $23 million to M's and $13 million to W's. This is critical because for a footprint that DASNY has of a statewide public authority, we maintain one of the highest MWBE utilization rates of any authority in the state of New York. So resource acquisition, what does this really mean? You've heard procurement, you've heard OPG. This means that we work together in setting up plans. There was a system that DASNY, myself, had quite a bit of input on called the New York State Contract System, which was put out by the Executive Chamber in terms of managing to help agencies and authorities throughout the state manage their MWBE effort better. Whether you had 5 people or you have 12 people, they wanted the same experience from all of the agencies. So we work together in making sure that our staffs are utilizing the system. Number 2, we collaborate from all procurements, from selection to closeout, as I've mentioned. OPG is fully integrated into the procurement process. So Lou and I are talking more often than not, or going down to each other's offices to make sure, and the staffs, more importantly, are interacting on every single procurement that we have. I think the next bullet here was critical in terms of Gerard's vision. MWBE, and Mike Cusack played an important role in this also. MWBE utilization cannot just be one department or division's responsibility. It has to be the entire agency. So in combining resource acquisition or putting resource acquisition together, we're now using the most critical department in the agency to facilitate MWBE utilization, and we've worked through the construction division with a huge undertaking to ensure that our project managers, our design managers, our assistant project managers, and our field reps are cognizant of what MWBE utilization is occurring on the contracts that they're monitoring, which was critical because prior to that, only OPG had the responsibility of MWBE utilization for this agency. And lastly, as I've said, the point of phrase, MWBE utilization is everyone's job, and that's currently the way DASNY is moving forward today. Any questions that we can answer?
Before you close out, I think it's important for you both to highlight to the board the general liability piece, because I preempted you on that the last time. You have an opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Do it, okay? Because I think that's very important.
One of the things, what's Gerard talking about, I think you heard him mention in his report that general liability insurance was going to be put out as a discretionary purchase. Lou and I work together because typically that's been rolled out. Some of the biggest brokers in not only New York State but in the country respond to that RFP process. So what we did, we worked with Kim, we worked with the insurance division and Dodson, and Lou and myself, and we worked with an idea of how we could change the paradigm on this, where an MWBE would partner with a large majority insurance broker to be able to deliver the general liability services that DASNY requires. Now, why couldn't MWBs do it on their own? Because typically they've not been able to manage a portfolio as large as what DASNY would require. And that's not only DASNY, but most of the executive agencies and public authorities in the state of New York. So DASNY will be the first public authority in the state of New York putting out a discretionary procurement where we are requiring that a credible MWBE and a credible majority firm partner to provide the services to DASNY. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a game changer because it has not occurred previously, and the sum result will be, and we're going through the procurement process now, that a MWBE will now be in a position to partner and be able to successfully being selected, then be able to provide services like this across any other state agency or public authority. And the deal was they couldn't do it because they'd never gotten the opportunity to get the work to do it. And that's critical, and I applaud Gerard for allowing this and seeing the vision of this and pushing us to get it done. So it's out on the street, and as I understand it, the governor's office and others are very interested in how this procurement goes because in insurance, as you know, there's very little subcontracting. So whoever is selected is the individual or entity that provides the services.
Are there questions?
What do you use, like the model you did with the bond council? That type of?
Seems to be the model, but let's
Not-
have.
Not quite. Not quite.
Not quite.
No, we are now building capacity in the market. So, in other words, we go to the marketplace and we say, look, it looks like that, but we're looking for an enduring partnership and a relationship that one could make as part of their business objective. So you have put together this partnership, all right, to do business with New York State. This simultaneously gives you an opportunity because the J.P. Morgans of the world, the Allstates of the world, the AT&Ts of the world are demanding this as well. So what we are saying is that we are also providing this capacity and looking to the market to build these relationships. And that's all it is. These are organic relationships. We're not doing any of this stuff. This is all organic.
I applaud the effort. I think it's terrific, and I've got my fingers crossed that it works exactly the way we want for it to work. Why would a major broker want a team with an MWBE or a WBE with whom or with which that broker has not had any relationship whatsoever? That is, doesn't know the firm, has no sense of how that firm works. Why would they want to do that?
Al, some of the synergy that's going on, as Gerard has mentioned, about some of the major corporate partners that he's mentioned, this type of activity is occurring. It has not happened in the public arena because of the way that the procurements were structured, saying, I need you to have handled, if you're a general liability broker, for example, 150 claims,
Right.
being able to place $75 to $80 million in risk out in the market, both domestic and international. Well, most firms don't get the opportunity. That's no different than a subcontractor who now has bonding and capital access to be able to do a $5 million or $10 million or $15 million project. If incrementally they're not building themselves and they're not in a position to do that. This is similarly with the insurance. It's now because of there are qualified firms, but they've never handled 80 million. They may have handled 20 or 25 million. So they're not infancy, they're not babies, but they are firms that just need the opportunity to work with a larger firm to be able to gain that capacity. And so this procurement allows it in a legal way. And we're functioning under discretion. We've thrown this term around, but discretionary procurements were passed back in 2010. And what it says is that MWBs, an agency or authority, can do a procurement if there's a sufficient bidding pool of at least 3 bidders with MWBEs that are New York State certified on a procurement. So we took that, we worked with Mike's team, and we looked at it to make sure everything was legal. But this provides an opportunity for firms to partner together, Al, in a manner that they typically would not have partnered before. And DASNY does not lose out on getting qualified service that we need in order to have the protection on our projects.
The marketplace has already demanded, okay, these partnerships. And so many of these institutions have strategic partners. They may not be working in this context right now, but they have vetted providers. They have vetted providers who they want to work with. It's kind of like the banks. So when we put together, all right, transactions, many of these banks have preferred providers that they work with, right? And so they've been doing this for a long period of time. So these are known quantities. They're not unknown. So what we did was we went into the marketplace, and there are going to be those who say, no, we don't want to do it that way. But we say, look, give us an outcome. Tell us how this should be constructed. And there are those who say, we're ready for this. And these are big strategic players.
Okay.
Big players. So even, I won't throw any names, but they're one of the largest across the globe has been doing it So I did.
We're in a procurement.
I did. Folks, no.
This is because we're in the period now.
Yes.
Right.
So-
Right. So we have to be very careful about the names we use. Right.
But the point is that they are doing this, and everyone has the capacity to do this. And most importantly, okay, don't look at the state. Look at the for-profit world. They're getting a tremendous amount of pressure in terms of how they do business and who they do business with. And so that demand is there. We're just telling folks that, yes, we have a mission. We want to be serviced. We want to be serviced by the best, okay? Plain and simple. And bring us your best partnerships. That's what this is all about. Bring us your best partnerships.
Do we know the size of the pool of potentially eligible MWBE and WBE liability brokers in New York?
There is a list of folks who are certified, but I mean, to give you that there's 20, there's 30.
Yeah.
What we did in an effort was we had a pre-meeting before the RFP was put on the street where we invited MWB brokers and majority brokers to have a dialogue.
Sure.
About how this would work in the marketplace, and really to let the marketplace know that DASNY was contemplating doing this. The meeting went well. There were no complaints from the majorities, and there were no complaints from the MWBE's brokers about the opportunity.
Last question, Mike. Is it your thinking that the potential partnerships will be with a large firm and one MWB or WBE firms, or might the same smaller firm attach itself to several larger firms?
That's where the marketplace comes in now in terms of they're going to dictate how that's going to be. But one thing I can assure you, the requirements of the RFP says that an MWBE must be in the lead.
Okay.
And they can have a majority partner working with them.
Yep.
So that they have a qualified team. So
Okay.
if that's 1-to-1 or 1-to-2,
Okay.
or an all MWBE, as long as they can meet the requirements of the RFP, then they will be evaluated as such.
Terrific idea, Mike. Yes, I'm sorry.
Good question. First, thank you for your presentation, impressive on both parts. My question has to do with, do our construction projects generally include interior design and the FFE? I mean, ask it a different way. Is it unusual that a client says, you do the building and I'll take it from there?
We see them both ways. Sometimes our clients are very sophisticated and they have purchasing and interior designers on staff, and they'll do that. And sometimes they say, please do it all. You know, they tell us what they want, but they'll ask us to furnish and do the interior design, do the furnishing and purchasing for all of that. So it can happen either way, and whatever the client would like, we'll do.
And one is not more likely than the other. It's just a mix.
It is just a mix.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you both very much. Behind tab 10, the general counsel report. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Not on that.
Quickly.
Oh, yes, there is. Sorry.
You will now hear from Yvette and Nicholas. Yvette heads up our human capital and operations. Yvette Malave-Delan and Nicholas Olette, who is our recruitment specialist. So this will be a shorter presentation.
Yes, this will be a very short presentation, and it's my great pleasure really to introduce Nicholas Olette, who is our talent acquisition specialist, who will walk you through what we have done so far under the leadership of President Michelle.
First of all, this is going to be very brief, 3 slides, not to get anybody too excited, but I just want to talk about human capital bench strength. Before I really go into this, just a brief analogy of what bench strength is. You know, I was trying to read about it last night to figure out how I wanted to say it. It's like in baseball. It's who you have on your bench that can come in and fill in with solid capabilities to keep the functionality of the team running at full capacity. So we'll go ahead and move forward. Upon joining DASNY, the president, he identified a risk in the organization's human capital bench strength, and it's in regards to a loss of individuals in critical positions due to retirement. I know everyone in here, no one here is a stranger to the retirement bubble that a lot of organizations, both private and public, are facing. As a result, the president has called upon the executive staff, human resources, and budget to form a team focused on addressing the risk and also presenting solutions. The human capital team and budget are working closely with each department to develop strategic plans, that mitigate the anticipated risk of talent drain due to these retirements. This organization-wide initiative is responsible for maintaining current human capital while identifying the skills and competencies needed in the future. And currently, we have already done with the construction division, we've completed a strategic plan, and all the other divisions are currently underway. So this is an issue, it's been identified since Gerard came here. We've gone ahead and we've worked with managing directors all the way through human resources and budget, and we have plans in place to make sure that this is not an issue moving forward. The human capital team collaborated with executive staff and departmental managers to identify areas where critical positions would be lost to retirement. The positions facing the most significant losses include, now you see project managers, field representatives, engineers, architects, accountants, contract administrators. That's great. But these four here are higher level positions. So intense focus has to be put on those four positions. Not to mention, as far as new hire frequency goes, these four positions are in the limelight as well. So extensive focus is going to be placed on these, but everything as a whole here. Given this insight, strategic plans will include action sequences focusing on mitigating talent drain through timely knowledge transfer. And our initiative of strengthening human capital while maintaining operational capabilities is a primary focus for DASNY across all of its businesses. DASNY is committed to being an employer of choice while striving to basically access the broadest talent pool across all of New York State. We have taken plenty of measures that gives me the ability to actually reach talent, headhunting if you will, across the entire nation. So we're really being progressive, staying at the forefront of recruitment. DASNY has attended the following college career fairs in an effort to maximize outreach while educating future generations about DASNY's mission. Now, while I put these up here, I went ahead and I attended all of these career fairs. All great universities. The students were amazing. I usually had a subject matter expert with me, project manager or architect or a chief project manager, who was able to speak with the students about not only their decisions on the field of study, but how DASNY can help them get to a higher level within that field of study. They're like, well, I want to be an architect. Well, I want to be an engineer. Well, have you ever thought about transitioning to a project manager? And all of a sudden, their eyes get big. So it was definitely beneficial for us to be there. Not to mention, I was kind of taking a field study of how many of the students knew about DASNY, and it was stifling. But trust me, I swear on my Marine Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, by the time we left those college campuses, they knew all about DASNY and the benefits. We will be attending in spring. These are just the schools we have thus far. Yvette and I would like to add to this list, obviously, because it's definitely beneficial for us to get out there and push our brand name, push our purpose, operating private, but with a public purpose. The students seem to really respond to that, and that's something we're going to be pushing moving forward in the future. The Human Resource Department has developed and implemented a systematic approach on recruiting and consists of the following professionals. This is a list of everyone within the Human Resource Department. I had the pleasure of joining DASNY back in August, and we'll continue on working on recruiting initiatives with both executive staff, my own department, and budget to make sure that we identify gators that are closest to the boat, as we used to say in the Marine Corps, but also get the big picture and make sure that the strategic plans are going to follow a 10-year period. So, does anybody have any questions?
Well, a comment, I like that expression.
We're loving that.
I apologize, sir.
We're loving that.
Old habits are hard to get over. Thank you.
That was great.
Thank
So,
you, sir.
so Nicholas is, again, a young gentleman who has served our nation in the Corps. And so he brings that energy, effusion, and grit in terms of going out and talking to people and spreading our message, because it is done one person at a time. And so he's doing that. Yvette, as well as the entire team, is working very closely with him, getting him out there. And he's spending time with departmental managers as well as other hiring managers across DASNY. So it's been a very good initiative. So thank you. We really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
That's it. Do you have anything, Michael?
Conclude my report.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Just two quick brief announcements in your packages today. We're continuing the tradition of the last couple of years of giving the board a schedule outlining when the major compliance and oversight initiatives will be addressed in the next calendar year. You have a grouping of about a dozen reviews that will be done in the March meeting. 4 significant reviews that are mainly centered on audit committee and board action in April. And in June, of course, we do the big audit review along with ABO reporting requirements. This will give you a view of what's coming up. If there's anything you want to comment on, feel free to contact Debbie or me. Second, Diane is working now with Debbie on an initiative to take our board book with all of these policies. A lot of people have the old binders with things inserted in it, and come up with a version that can be downloaded through the portal for those that are using computers and iPads and laptops and other devices. So that'll be coming up in January or February timeframe. That's it. That concludes the report.
Thank you very much. Is there any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to adjourn? Thank you, John Gardner, for the motion, and John Johnson, thank you so much for the second. May I, all in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Yes, very informative, by the way. Thank you.
Can we tell